Did you know that there was a Druid shapeshift form that was forbidden to be used since it was so dangerous not only to others but to the wielder of the form itself? This form is known as the Pack form, which allows Druids to transform into a wolf like the ancient guardian Goldorin, allowing the Druid who uses it to possess incredible strength, agility, and ferocity. But why was this form forbidden and looked down upon by Malfurion and a majority of the Druids? What made it so dangerous? So, 9,300 years ago, during the War of the Satyr, the Night Elves faced heavy losses and scores of their people fell. Because of this, a Night Elf Druid named Raylar Fangfire proposed the idea to Malfurion that perhaps the Pack form should be used and perfected, since it would surely allow them to win the war against the Satyrs. Malfurion, however, stated that the form is too dangerous since those who take its form tend to lose themselves in their rage, resulting to the Pack form Druids attacking friend and foe alike. This actually has happened to Malfurion in the past. To embrace the Pack form meant that the Kalderae would risk a war on two fronts, and that would be the destruction of their people. To reinforce Malfurion, Tyrande also stated that the Pack form's strength is rooted in the demigod Goldorin's rage against Elune. This is because Goldorin was unwilling to tame his savagery and bloodlust that it caused Elune to be greatly disappointed in the Wolf Ancient. However, her judgment would only fuel the flame to Goldorin's fury. This then causes Malfurion to ask the question to Raylar, that if the Wolf Ancient himself cannot tame his rage, then how can the Druids fare a better chance? Arvel, another Druid and the best friend to Raylar and devoted student to Malfurion, then steps forward and tells Malfurion that he understands the dangers of the Pack form, and that from now on, he and Raylar would heed Malfurion's warnings. As the war continues on, a small group of Night Elves including Chandra's Feathermoon, Arvel, and Raylar manage to assassinate one of the most cunning generals of the Satyr army, a general named Zaelin. However, as they were retreating, the demons and Satyrs cornered Raylar and Arvel. Refusing to meet his end this day, Raylar convinces Arvel to use the Pack form, despite Arvel telling him that it is too dangerous. As Raylar transforms into the Pack form, so too does Arvel. However, unlike Raylar, Arvel does it reluctantly, even apologizing to Malfurion before transforming. Once taking the form of Goldorin, they begin decimating the Satyrs, two Druids against dozens of Satyrs, and yet they, the Druids, were the ones who were winning, at least for now. As the battle continued and Arvel and Raylar fought their way away from the Satyrs, they ran into Malfurion, Tyrande, Chandris, and a number of sentinels and priestesses. Unable to control their rage, both Druids of the Pack form begin ruthlessly murdering their fellow Night Elves until Malfurion manages to incapacitate both of them and bring them back to Night Elf controlled territory. Once safe, Raylar continues defending the Pack form, stating that it is because of this form that he and Arvel are able to sit in front of Malfurion and have this conversation. But Tyrande retorts by stating that if it were not for the Pack form, perhaps their fellow sentinels would still be alive in place of them. Malfurion then stated that if they give in to the form and allow rage to dominate them, then they are not Druids. They are not even Kalderae. Hearing the Druid's words, Arvel immediately apologizes and pledges that he will never use the form again, vowing it on his life. Raylar, however, sits there, quietly, apologizing for nothing and vowing nothing. Now, as the story continues, it's pretty interesting to note that Arvel is much like Malfurion, very much like Malfurion, while Raylar is somewhat like Illidan to an extent. He believes in an unorthodox way to winning the war. Even their relationships are similar. Despite Arvel and Raylar not being related, they consider themselves as brothers. Now, as Arvel and his lover, a female night elf named Belisra, walk together in the forest, they discover a Satyr stronghold. Before they can retreat, the demons find them and ambush them. During the fight, Belisra begs Arvel to use the Pack form, otherwise they will both die. But Arvel refuses to break his vow. Instead, he begs for Belisra to flee while he himself will hold back the Satyrs. With his choice made and refusing to break his promise to Malfurion, Arvel is killed by a Felguard, and Belisra, so consumed by grief, loses her will to fight. Before the death blow is landed though, Raylar jumps into the fray in his Pack form and single-handedly butchers the Satyrs and the demons. After rescuing Belisra, the two return to Malfurion, where he is just so consumed by shock and the grief at the sight of his beloved student dead before him. Stating that it was because of Malfurion that Arvel is now dead, Raylar and Belisra leave the Archdruid to grieve for the death of his student. As time passes, words of Arvel's fate reaches the Druids. Some of those who follow Raylar's mindset decide to follow him, and with him as their leader, they begin to master the Pack form. However, even Raylar states that the form is impossible to control for any long duration, so with Belisra's aid, he and his pack druids give her a fang from Goldrin and infuse it with the Staff of Elune, in hopes that using the two artifacts together would help the pack druids tame their rage and make their form more controllable. From this point on, this artifact was to be known as the Scythe of Elune, and the druids of the Pact were transformed into the Worgen. Time passes again, and Malfurion, Tyrande, Chandris, and their forces assault the Satyr stronghold, the same one which was spotted by Belisra and Arvel days ago. In their assault, Raylar and his Worgen joined their attack and sieged the Satyr fortification as well. With the Druids, Sentinels, and Worgen all working in unison, the demons stood no chance, and their fort was burned to ash. However, as the fight appeared to be over, Raylar turned on Malfurion. He did not forget the death of Arvel, and he did not forgive his former Shando's mistakes. With a battle cry, he commanded the Worgen to assault the Night Elves. Belisra, now seeing her mistake in aiding Raylar, watches the view from afar. Watches the very thing Malfurion was afraid of since the beginning. A war on two fronts. As the Worgen bit into the Night Elves, the Elves began transforming, turning into Worgen and bolstering the numbers to Raylar's army. Seeing now that this battle could not be won at this point in time, Malfurion orders a retreat. As the weeks went by, the Worgen ravaged across the Night Elven land, slaughtering hordes of satyrs, but also attacking and converting many Kalderae into Worgen. In the face of such a threat, Malfurion and his closest druids, including Fantril Staghelm and Naralex, formed the Cenarian Circle, an order that will do all that they can to protect Druidism and make sure that what has happened with the Pack Druids would never happen again. During this meeting, Belisra appears and delivers the Scythe of Elune to Malfurion's hands. Seeing now that Raylar and his Worgen must be stopped before the entirety of the Kalderae people would forever be destroyed. And so, they formed a plan to deceive the Worgen. This plan involved Belisra telling Raylar that Malfurion wishes to meet with the Worgen to seek forgiveness, but in reality, Malfurion would use the Scythe of Elune not to kill the Worgen, but to banish them to the Emerald Dream, where they could dream for an eternity. When the meeting was finally set, Raylar had the same plan as Malfurion: deception. Immediately, he commands his Worgen to assault the Night Elves, but before the Worgen can do anything, Belisra throws the scythe to Malfurion, and the Archdruid uses it to banish the Worgen into an eternal sleep. A sleep where they could forever dream of the wilds. And this was the Forbidden Pack form. A form so powerful and yet so dangerous that even its wielder could not control it at times. The Worgen of today that come from Gilneas suffered the same issues of the Worgen of the past. However, with the aid of a Night Elven ritual that makes peace with traumatic events from a person's past and helps quell their rage and guilt, a Worgen can have balance between both their human side and their Worgen side. This is why the Worgen of today can fight alongside us without ripping us apart limb from limb. And that is pretty much it to the video, guys. Once again, I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like below. It really helps and shows that you guys like this type of content. And if you want another WoW topic to be covered, please comment it down below so that, it can be brought to my attention. Once again, guys, peace out, take care, and like always, have a good one.